My name is Chris Rolls. I am the music editor or associate editor for mp3.com. I run a small record label in San Francisco called Chemosiotic Records. I'm also in a music group called La Flange de Mal. Well, I'm here interviewing artists. I'm in your position for the majority of the day, talking to a variety of artists, A-list and baby bands as well. Well, some of the content we actually just got live today on the website. We did an interview with Talib Kweli at the Warner Showcase. So that's live. So we're trying to do a hub showing people what South by Southwest is about. I mean, since it's generally been an industry event, but more and more of the public seem to be catching wind of it and coming down, we wanted to provide a really nice slice. And then afterwards, we'll be doing sort of a huge montage of all the artists that we talk to and street scenes and what have you. Well, I used to work in the bubble era of the .com industry, and I worked for a company called Listen, and they were acquired by Real. I was laid off. I took some time off to do music label stuff and tour with a variety of bands. And then I decided to get back into it when I heard that mp3.com was being revived by CNET, and I reached out to a few people there and actually came on doing just simple data production work and began writing a column called Rolls Off the Tongue, which is my last name, and it was just sort of a summary of weekly events and what have you in music, and that expanded into writing about albums as well, and they seemed to trust me. So now I'm in the hot seat interviewing artists, doing podcasts with artists as well, and hopefully more video content and growing from there. Yeah. I think it makes it a lot easier to interview people. In fact, I find that it requires significantly less research. If you know what it's like to be in a studio or to deal with record labels in general, eating, ramen on the road for a month, that sort of thing, it really helps to take people, well, it doesn't really take them by surprise, but it generally relaxes the musicians once they catch wind of the fact that you're not just some sort of observer, standing from the outside with no personal experience. I'm not a musician. I can't actually sit down at a guitar and play or write music. I got into music by doing found sound and environmental recordings. I'm really interested in atmospherics and creating fake realities through music. So I used to do a lot of things like that, like pulling sound sources from different places, environmental recordings, and then recreating new environments out of that. But really, to answer your question, I've just always been fascinated by music. And when I was in high school, I had a community, or I had a show on a community radio station in Tucson, Arizona called KXCI. And really, I just knew from sort of that point on that in some way I would be involved in music. And I always have been, whether I was just washing dishes and then going home and working on some small cassette project that maybe 5 people would listen to, or actually, getting 2 bands out on the road and really exposing what I consider to be interesting music to young children. But that's kind of actually what drives my label, is the idea that, there's a 13-year-old kid out there that's going to listen to my music and it will inspire what they do. It actually began as a collective effort. There were a group of musicians in San Francisco in the late 90s. We were all doing experimental electronics, and there were about 8 of us, and we started recording a lot of material over a 9-month period and playing a lot of shows as different artists. We would change the name of the group all the time, and sort of this experimental electronic supergroup. And we had all this great material and nothing to do with it. We had it up on the original mp3.com at the time, but I wanted to really get it out. So I just got the money together and pressed up, a double 12-inch vinyl record and put a stamp on it and thought that that would be it. That was my one sort of vinyl contribution to the world. And then I started getting approached by bands locally in San Francisco about putting out music, and now I'm 14 releases deep, and worked with a few artists that have gone on to major indies. Well, that was .com money at the time, but I've done it with no job, and working as a carpenter or washing dishes, whatever I've needed to do in order to get the music out, essentially.
Personal investment, then?
Absolutely. I'd say that about 60% of my income actually goes towards some sort of music-related, thing, whether that be putting money back into the band that I work with, or promoting artists on my label, or building websites for other people. And mainly vinyl releases, which takes a lot of money. Well, it's funny that we're talking about this, because I had a huge discussion last night with a friend of mine. I have one last vinyl project for this group called OCS out of San Francisco. And they're actually on Narnak Records out of New York. And I decided just the music itself needed to be on vinyl. I think vinyl is pretty much obsolete. It's obviously an enthusiast market. You really have to fetishize vinyl in order to buy it. But I do it, I suppose, because as a child, holding a record was such a tactile and intimate experience. And I think that that's something that digital music really robs people of. Sitting and really opening a gatefold and staring at the artwork and thinking about what went into it, and reading production credits and all that sort of stuff. And that's why I continue to do it, and I work with artists that still romanticize that experience. It goes back to the old saying, we want to put out a record. Everybody still says we're putting out an album. We're recording our record. And it relates to this technology that is not outdated. We watch these ephemeral technologies come and go. CDs, I think, are the best example right now. So we move into, a completely digital landscape. They just become this form of transportation for music, whereas with a vinyl piece, I can, pull out something from the 20s